Imagine waking up every day feeling like you're drowning, juggling work, bills, and the overwhelming responsibility of raising a child completely alone. That was Jake's reality. A single dad with a heart full of love but hands too full to catch his own breath. Then one desperate night, he did something he never thought he'd do. He placed a help-wanted ad online. Not for a babysitter. Not for a housekeeper. But for someone to step into the chaos of his life and somehow make sense of it all. What happened next? A stranger walked in. A woman who didn't just change his routine. She changed everything. If you've ever felt alone, if you've ever wondered whether fate has a plan for you, then this story isn't just for you, it's about you. Because buried in this tale of second chances and unexpected love is a truth we all secretly hope for. That somewhere out there, the right person is waiting to rewrite our story. And today, you're going to find out exactly how Jake's life took a turn so wild, so unbelievable, that even he couldn't have seen it coming. But let's rewind. Because before the miracles, there was just exhaustion. Jake was a good dad, the kind who burned the midnight oil to put food on the table, who tucked his daughter in with stories even when his eyes could barely stay open. But love doesn't pay the bills, and no amount of caffeine could stretch 24 hours into enough. So with shaky hands, he typed out an ad that would unknowingly become a lifeline. Asterisk, help needed. Not sure for what. Just help. Asterisk. Sounds vague, right? That's because Jake didn't know what he was asking for. But the universe did. Enter Sarah. A woman whose response wasn't just a message. It was a key. The kind that unlocks doors you didn't even know were closed. Her words were warm, steady, like a hand reaching out in the dark. But here's the thing about strangers. They come with secrets. And Sarah? She had one. A big one. By now, you're probably screaming at the screen. Asterisk, who is she? What's the secret? Did they fall in love? Asterisk, oh, you're definitely getting those answers. But here's what you need to know first. This isn't just a love story. It's a proof story. Proof that when you're at your lowest, life can still surprise you. Proof that the most ordinary moments, a knock on the door, a handwritten note, can split your world into before and after. So here's my promise to you. Stick with me, and by the end of this video, you'll feel it, that electric jolt of hope, that whisper in your gut saying, asterisk, what if? Asterisk, because Jake's story doesn't just belong to him anymore. It belongs to anyone who's ever dared to hope. And if you're still watching, you're one of them. But before we go any further, let's talk about that night. The night Sarah walked in, looked Jake dead in the eye, and said the one thing that made his entire world stop. Because that asterisk was the moment everything changed. That night, when Sarah stood in Jake's dimly lit doorway, the air between them crackled with something neither could name, not yet. She wasn't what he expected. No polished resume. No rehearsed answers about childcare experience. Just a quiet intensity in her eyes and a single sentence that lodged itself in his chest like a promise. Asterisk. I'm not here to fix your life. I'm here to show you it's already worth saving. Asterisk, and just like that, Jake's carefully constructed walls, the ones he'd built to keep out pity, judgment, and the ache of his late wife's absence, began to tremble. But what Jake didn't know was that Sarah's words weren't just kindness. They were a confession. A clue to the storm she'd been running from. One that would soon pull them both into its grip. Before Sarah, there was only the grind. Jake's days blurred together in a cycle of daycare drop-offs, double shifts at the auto shop, and nights spent staring at the ceiling, wondering how a man could feel so alone in a house full of his daughter's laughter. His little girl, Emma, was his light, but the guilt of raising her without her mother was a shadow he couldn't shake. The ad had been a Hail Mary, a scrap of hope tossed into the void. He never imagined someone like Sarah would answer, a woman who carried herself like she'd already survived a war, her smiles fleeting but her hands steady as she folded Emma's tiny clothes, scrubbed peanut butter off the walls, and somehow, without trying, made the silence in the house feel less heavy. Then came the cracks in the facade. A missed phone call Sarah would dismiss too quickly. The way she'd flinch at the sound of sirens. The night Jake came home early and found her sitting at the kitchen table, a faded Polaroid clenched in her fist, a little boy with Sarah's eyes, his grin frozen in time. Asterisk. Who is he? Asterisk, Jake had asked, and the way Sarah's voice broke when she whispered, someone I lost, sent a chill down his spine. Suddenly, the perfect helper had a past, and it was barreling toward them like a freight train. Meanwhile, Emma was blossoming under Sarah's care, her giggles louder, her nightmares fewer. Jake wanted to believe it was just the stability, the extra tension. But deep down, he feared the truth. His daughter was bonding with a woman who might vanish as suddenly as she appeared. And then there was the undeniable pull between him and Sarah. A tension that simmered in stolen glances and accidental touches. It was dangerous, reckless even, to let himself feel something when Sarah's secrets hung over them like a blade. But the heart doesn't care about logic. Not when it's been starving for warmth as long as Jake's had. The turning point came on a rain-soaked Thursday, when a black SUV idled at the end of the driveway for a beat too long. Sarah's face went ghost white. Asterisk, you need to leave. Now, asterisk, she'd hissed, shoving Emma's backpack into Jake's arms. Panic laced her words, but before Jake could demand answers, the SUV peeled away, and so did Sarah's mask. That's when the pieces clicked, the fake last name, the burner phone buried in her duffel bag, the way she'd study every stranger in the grocery store like they might be a threat. Whoever Sarah really was, she wasn't just running from something. She was running to something, or someone. And now, whatever she'd been hiding from had found her. Jake's mind raced. Should he call the police? Confront Sarah? Protect Emma at all costs? But then he'd remember the way Sarah sang Emma to sleep with a lullaby that sounded like a memory, or how she'd fixed his daughter's favorite stuffed bear with stitches as careful as a surgeon's. This wasn't just some stranger. This was the woman who'd taught him to believe in good things again. And that made the betrayal cut deeper. Because as the storm of Sarah's past finally broke over them, Jake would have to make an impossible choice. Trust the woman who'd brought light back into their lives, or save his family from the danger she'd dragged to their doorstep. And here's the kicker. The part that'll make your stomach drop. That black SUV? It wasn't there for Sarah. It was there for Emma. The moment Jake realized the black SUV wasn't there for Sarah, but for Emma, time seemed to fracture. His blood turned to ice as the pieces snapped together. The way Sarah had always watched Emma a little too protectively, the way she stiffened whenever someone asked about the girl's birthmark, the way she'd once whispered, "She looks just like her," under her breath, thinking Jake couldn't hear. Now, as rain lashed against the windows and Sarah's hands trembled around Emma's tiny shoulders, the truth hit Jake like a sucker punch. This wasn't just about Sarah's past. It was about Emma's past. A past he thought he knew, but had clearly never understood at all. Sarah's voice was raw with urgency as she shoved a crumpled plane ticket into Jake's hand. Asterisk, take her and go. Don't trust anyone. Not even the police. Asterisk, the word should have sounded paranoid, but the terror in her eyes was too real to dismiss. And then, just as Jake was about to demand answers, Emma tugged at Sarah's sleeve and said the one thing that shattered the last of Jake's certainty. Asterisk, is the bad man coming back for me too? Asterisk 2. That single word cracked the world wide open. Because if Emma knew enough to ask that question, then Jake hadn't just been living with a stranger. He'd been raising a child with secrets he couldn't even fathom. The next 24 hours were a blur of packed bags, hushed arguments, and Sarah's frantic phone calls to a number she refused to explain. Every time Jake pressed her. Asterisk, who's after Emma? Why? How do you know any of this? Asterisk, Sarah's answers were maddeningly vague, her eyes darting to Emma as if the truth was too dangerous to speak aloud. But then came the call that changed everything. A voice on the other end of Sarah's burner phone, tinny and distorted, sent her collapsing against the wall. Asterisk, they found the adoption records. They know she's alive. Asterisk, adoption. The word landed like a grenade. Because Jake had never adopted Emma. She was his biological daughter, or so he believed for the past 5 years. Now, the foundation of Jake's life was crumbling. The birth certificate he'd held, the hospital memories he'd clung to, were they all lies? Had his late wife, Claire, known? And who the hell was Sarah really? The woman currently stuffing cash into a backpack with military precision didn't match the gentle caregiver who'd sung lullabies and fixed broken toys. This Sarah had a razor hidden in her boot, a contact saved under burner 3, and a familiarity with Emma's fears that went beyond coincidence. When Jake finally grabbed her wrist and growled, "Start talking," Sarah did, but her confession only spun the nightmare deeper. Asterisk, Emma's not who you think she is. And neither was Claire. Asterisk. Outside, headlights sliced through the darkness. 2 cars this time. Sarah's breath hitched as she pulled a gun from the waistband of her jeans. Since when did she carry? And shoved Jake toward the back door. Asterisk, there's a safe house in Montana. Coordinates are in your phone. Go. But Jake couldn't move. Because the photo now glowing on Sarah's locked screen, a younger her standing beside Claire, their arms wrapped around each other like sisters, was proof that every memory he'd ever trusted was a carefully constructed lie. And the men in those cars? They weren't just coming for Emma. They were coming to finish what someone had started the night Claire supposedly died in that car crash. The knock on the door wasn't polite. It was a demand. 3 sharp raps. Then silence. Sarah's finger hovered over the trigger, her other hand pressing Emma's face into her chest to muffle the girl's whimpers. Jake's mind raced. Run. Fight. Trust the woman who'd upended his reality? But then Emma lifted her head, her tears glistening in the dim light, and whispered the words that would haunt Jake forever. Daddy, what if Mommy's not really gone? And in that heartbeat between the knock and the door splintering open, Jake understood. This wasn't just a battle for their lives. It was a reckoning. Because the truth about Claire, about Emma, about everything, was buried in the crossfire between Sarah's secrets and the men who just kicked down their door. And by the time this night was over, nothing would ever be the same. The door exploded inward, and time seemed to fracture into jagged heart-pounding fragments. Jake barely had a second to react before Sarah shoved him and Emma to the ground, her gun barking out a deafening shot that sent the first intruder stumbling back. In the chaos of shouting men and splintering wood, Jake caught a glimpse of the truth. These weren't just hired thugs. They moved with precision, their gear tactical, their voices clipped with military efficiency. And then, one of them shouted a name that turned Jake's blood to ice. Lena, stand down. Lena. Not Sarah. Lena. The woman he'd trusted with his daughter, with his life, had been lying from the very first moment they'd met. But there was no time to process. Bullets tore through the drywall as Jake dragged Emma toward the kitchen, her small fingers gripping his with terrified strength. Sarah, Lena, covered their retreat, her movements too fluid, too practiced for someone who'd claimed she was just a drifter looking for work. Then came the moment that changed everything. One of the men lunged for Emma, and Lena didn't hesitate. She put a bullet between his eyes. The room fell deadly silent for half a breath before the remaining men opened fire, and Lena went down hard, blood blooming across her shoulder. Jake watched in stunned horror as she crawled toward Emma, her voice ragged but clear. The locket, your mom gave you, play the message. Then the world erupted again. Jake didn't remember grabbing the gun from Lena's limp hand or firing at the last man standing. He only knew that when the smoke cleared, Emma was sobbing into his chest, and Lena was gasping out a truth that unraveled the last of Jake's reality. Claire hadn't died in a car accident. She'd been murdered. And Emma? She wasn't just Jake's daughter. She was the key to a biotech breakthrough Claire had died trying to protect. A secret hidden in the locket Emma had worn since birth. The men who'd come for them tonight were part of a shadowy organization that had been hunting Claire's research for years, and Lena, Claire's estranged sister and former CIA operative, had been watching over Emma in secret, waiting for the day they'd strike. With Lena bleeding out in his arms and sirens wailing in the distance, Jake finally understood the depth of the betrayal, and the love, woven through this nightmare. Claire had faked her death to protect them, leaving Lena to guard Emma from the shadows. The help wanted ad? It hadn't been chance. Lena had engineered it, knowing Jake would soon be in over his head. And now, as Jake pressed his hands to Lena's wound, begging her to hold on, she smiled weakly and whispered the last twist of all. Claire's alive. And she's waiting for you. The police found Jake clutching Emma in the wreckage of their home, Lena's body gone and only a single clue left behind. A burner phone with one saved contact. Safe house 12. The message attached was a grainy video of a woman with Claire's smile, her voice trembling as she spoke 2 words that would send Jake and Emma on a desperate cross-country journey. Find me. As the screen fades to black, one question lingers, not just for Jake, but for all of us. How far would you go for a second chance with someone you thought was lost forever? The answer, it turns out, isn't in the running or the fighting. It's in the quiet moments, the lullabies, the peanut butter on the walls, the way a child's hand fits perfectly in yours, that tell you what's worth dying for. And sometimes, if you're brave enough to trust the broken people life sends your way, you might just discover that the love you thought was gone